87th year church anniversary and homecoming celebration. I am Henry Brown, and it is a joy for me to welcome those of you who have joined us in this beautiful hall that's adorned by an incredible array of artwork by our very own Miss Grace Coolidge Hines. Thank you for all of, again, thank you for those of you who've joined us here in person, and we especially thank those of you who have joined us online for this celebration of the visual arts here at Asbury as we celebrate our homecoming celebration. Would you join me in greeting the senior pastor of this household of faith, our pastor, the Reverend Dr. Ianther Mills.
Good afternoon, everyone. You have already been welcomed, but I do want to welcome you again. We are glad you came out. We're glad to have folks watching online as well as we kick off our celebration of homecoming, our 187th homecoming, with this lovely art show. And I feel blessed to know Grace Hines. I did not know she had all of this in her. And I am thankful that she is sharing it with us today. So let us be in an attitude of prayer. Lord God, we thank you for this time together as we begin our homecoming celebration. Thank you for the beautiful creation that is art. Thank you for our dear sister in Christ, Grace Hines, whom you have gifted as an artist and who's sharing her creations and collection with us today. We ask that you bless and guide her as she shares her heart and soul and as she continues to create great works of art. Help us all to see the beauty and meaning in these works today and use our appreciation of art to draw us closer to you and to your will. Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Mills. And again, before we begin our conversation with Grace Hines, would you join me again in just welcoming Grace and showing our appreciation for this wonderful collection that she has agreed to share with us? So I have to tell you, it has been an incredible experience for me and truly a joy to walk this road with Grace over the last, I would say, almost 2 months as we began putting this presentation together. So let's begin with a couple of questions, Grace. How long have you been a member of Asbury, and what's your family's connection to Asbury?
I was born into the church, and I was baptized in the church. So I've been here since I couldn't think. My mother joined the church in 1933, so that's my connection, family connection. My father was Episcopalian, so he didn't come.
And we do have two of your sisters who've joined us here.
Yes, Marjorie is the eldest, and Marion.
And then I learned you have a brother who's a general, I think you told me?
He passed in 2013.
And that's General
Hines.
Charles
Hines.
Charles Hines, yeah.
And we had another brother who was a lieutenant in the Second World War. So that was no mean feat. He died 2 months after Charles. He was 91.
Wow.
But Charles was only 77. So, and we have another brother who is also passed in 67 or something like that, And he was a musician. He played this organ, and he sang in the choir, Wesleyan choir, for a while. But he was, he was busy, and he couldn't stay still long, so he lived in New York.
But don't you love the way Grace, she describes, he was busy. So oftentimes, our professional lives, our personal lives, and our spiritual lives they are distinct and separate. But many times our Christian faith determines our direction and our paths in life. How has your faith impacted your art?
My faith is who I am. It's not just this thing for that thing and this piece for that thing. I'm all faith. I don't get up unless I feel the faith. And it takes a lot to get me up, but I get up. And so whatever I paint, it comes from me, and that's faith. I don't go a block without knowing that I am walking with God.
Wow.
So
That's
it.
powerful. That is good stuff. I want to recognize your sister, who is a dear friend of mine as well, an extremely accomplished educator at Howard University, Dr. Marion Hines. Would you stand? Dr. Hines has a brilliant legacy here in Washington, D.C. And for me, being relatively new here to Asbury, it has been a joy both to get to know Dr. Hines and Marjorie and my dear friend Grace. Dr. Hines published the book, Music, Musicians, Ministry. And there's a painting in this book that is the creation of how we got to this day. You will also see the piece of art there on that wall. This is titled Asbury Chapel, 1836. Grace, what was your inspiration for creating this piece?
Marion asked for it. She asked, now we're also, the three of us are so close, we finish each other's sentences sometimes, and we just say the same thing at the same time sometimes. So she asked for the chapel, a picture of the chapel. There are 3 or 4 pictures of different stages of Asbury as it was created. I think it was my idea to add the people. Marion thinks it was her idea. And so we will never know the truth because we all think the same thing, So I pictured the Sunday service, a minister speaking 5 hours, and I knew the people would be hungry, so they brought the baskets, and they would have a repast after the service, as we do here at Asbury sometimes. So that's how it came to me, and Marjorie said that they would be dressed in their finest, and some would be in overalls, and that's how it was. It was a collaboration.
Wonderful. And speaking of collaboration, how do you develop a piece of art? And what experiences do you draw from in that process?
I just watch, and I see something over there, and as Sherlock Holmes says, I docket it. And I don't go home and paint it or draw it, but it's there. I see the trees and the clouds and people looking this way or that, in this attitude or that, and I absorb it somehow, and eventually it comes out as a character in a painting. I think that's about it.
Yeah. And so I take it that process can be a short period of time, a long period of time, but it is a process, I would imagine.
Yeah, there are things in my file cabinet that have been there for years and have not been used. So,
They're still in process.
They're still in process.
Yeah. Have you collaborated with other artists, and did any of those experiences inspire a particular piece that's on display today that you could share with us?
I've never collaborated with anyone.
So is that a part of the process that's still in the
No,
file cabinet, I take it?
I'm just I'm a deadhead, so I stay by myself and do what I do. But I'm not very social, so collaboration isn't it.
Okay. In the collection, we're going to ask our wonderful communications and audiovisual team. They will share with those of you who are with us online. They're going to share some of the artwork with you on the screen. There's a section in the collection that's related to Asbury. I'm curious, what would, particularly these three pieces that are over here on this wall, I think it's titled Sunday Morning, Everett Williams and Stephen Key, as well as Asbury Chapel. What's the connection with these pieces to Asbury, and particularly as we celebrate homecoming?
Sunday morning doesn't have a whole lot to do with Asbury. I've never seen these things happen at Asbury that are going on in that church. That was commissioned by my niece. And she wanted portraits of herself and her children and her husband in the picture. Kelly always gives me in minutia what she wants in the picture, and so that's what I have to do with the plantation and the church and a couple of others that she wanted. You've already spoken of the chapel. Everett and Stephen are the music directors of the church, so that's their connection with the church. What was the other thing you asked me? That's enough, right?
So I have to tell you, when Grace and I began this journey, she told me, she said, now, Henry, we're going to keep this real short. My question's going to be real short. I think I might have some family members that are joining me online, that are joining us online. They know I love to talk. So we're going to make this about Grace, and I'm not going to talk as much, but I do have some more homecoming questions. So when I look at Sunday morning, this really takes me back to my roots back in Arkansas of our home church getting together, particularly on homecoming. So in this piece, is there something that you could tell the guests, in particular those of our guests who are with us online, who are looking at the picture for the first time, and those of us in the room who've had a chance to look at the piece, what's the connection to homecoming, I think in the broader sense of the body of Christ?
That picture, that painting has nothing to do with Asbury. If they are having a homecoming, that's their situation.
Yes.
And it's Kelly's idea, it's Kelly's vision. And so she wanted activity in a church on a Sunday morning.
Fantastic.
So I put in just about everything I could think of. The sinner in the middle aisle who's coming to beg for forgiveness and help and aid, and the baby screaming and crying, and the lady who won't put her knees together.
Yeah.
All of that, it's just, it has nothing directly to do with Asbury and our homecoming.
But I think but I think a lot of us definitely can relate to a lot of the images in that painting in particular. Going on, many of the pieces in your collection are filled with vibrant colors. For those of us who are in this beautiful room, we're able to really see the vibrancy in the colors. Could you tell us, as we look at Bobo Bushman on this wall, and we see a plantation, and we see griot, and then there are some of the more muted tones over on the other wall where we see Spencer Tracy. In the back, we see the wonderful painting of Gaia. And then back on this wall, there's a piece from your sister Marjorie's collection titled Waiting. Could you tell us about your creation when you're working and creating a piece of art, the relationship to color versus more muted tones?
I love to paint in monochromatic schemes. The brown is my favorite. And so Gaia and Waiting, and I thought there was another one, are examples
Spencer Tracy.
No, Spencer Tracy is color, full color. So these brown paintings, those are monochromatic colors, paintings. And I like to do that. But I don't start a painting and say I'm going to use red, yellow, green, and blue.
Interesting.
I set the scene up and put the colors in as it occurs to me. When I was beginning to paint, my mother didn't like them. And she said, I would show her my painting, and she would say, "Can't you just paint some trees, Grace?" And Marjorie said that I walked under a dark cloud. And Marion just called one of them the Jerks. And there was a painting that I did of an old man. He wasn't really old, but he was kind of old, sitting on a park bench mid-morning or, twilight time. And he had no shoestrings, and his coat was ragged, and he just looked so sad. And Mother really didn't like that. And no man who ever came in the house and saw that painting liked it. And he took it personally. It was like I had painted him or someone who was dear to him. And so I had to loosen up and put some color in the paintings for my own sake. And it was a learning process for me, because my mood and my attitude, my nature is not bright colors. But I had to learn to do that and try to make it look right.
And looking at a couple other pieces, on this wall we see a piece that's titled Neap Tide, I believe?
Neap, N-E-A-P.
Okay, it's titled Neap Tide. And then in the center of this wall, there's a piece titled Terrapin Soup. Where do you find your inspiration? And is there someone who influenced or currently influences your art?
Marion and I spent the summer in North Carolina once and ran into our first wildlife, which was a terrapin. And it almost scared me to death. I'd never heard of such a creature and never seen anything like that, because we were Washingtonians. And we lived in the city, and the wildest thing we ever saw was a squirrel. But there was this yellow turtle, and it just stayed with me. We were little kids, but that stayed with me. And then I was working somewhere, and a man came upon a turtle in the road, and he killed that turtle and said he was going to take it home. Told me he did take it home to make soup. So I put the two incidences together and got terrapin soup.
Isn't that interesting? Most artists, I'm not an artist in the least bit. So I'm really curious, but I do know that people in their particular professions, we like to do things at certain times. As an artist, is there a certain time of day that you find is most conducive to your creativity?
I'm a night owl. I like to be up at night when everyone is asleep. No one asks me anything. And if you want to have company, you have to go and wake them up. They leave you alone. And I like nighttime. Yeah. I'm most easily acclimated to the night than I am to the day. So I work better at night. Yeah. And besides, Marion had these projects when she was at Howard or any school, and she never, ever started before 1 a.m. So we would be up all night long, and it was just lucky that was my style. I could be up, Marjorie would be sound asleep, and we would be working like dogs. So that's it.
That's wonderful. There are a lot of, we have a lot of educators in the room. I see Joe Baker, who's a renowned educator, and my friend Bonnie, who is a wonderful educator. Later this afternoon at 5 o'clock, as part of the homecoming celebrations, Asbury will feature a group of young jazz musicians up in the main sanctuary at 5 o'clock. For those of us who have supported, mentored, and taught in schools, what would be your advice to a young person who may be considering a career or vocation as an artist?
I would tell them to go to school, learn all they can learn about digital art, which is computer graphics, but not to forget the traditional art, anatomy, color, balance, composition, all that stuff. Don't forget that. And if you can put the two together, you might have something. Who knows? I would tell them also to get a job. While they are learning to be a painter, find some way to make a living so that they can house, clothe, and feed themselves as they go through looking for a career in art. Because the competition for people who really want that life is stiff. Everybody and his uncle can paint. Everybody and his aunt has a computer, so they can put out masterpieces. So you have to be able to take care of yourself. And so I would tell them to get a job and then search, but educate yourself in the process.
Fantastic. That is wonderful advice. That is wonderful advice. And I think for my nieces and nephews who may be watching, that's the advice that I give them all the time. So you're hearing it from somebody other than me. It is your time, our guest here in the room, to ask questions. And we want to invite our guests who are with us online to join in the conversation. I'm going to ask one of our new I don't want to say members yet, but I'm really hoping that he makes this decision. Quentin Davis Jones, who happens to be my cousin, he's going to come around in the room and provide the microphones to those of you who have questions. And he's also going to watch the chat on YouTube. So for those of you who are watching us online who might have a question to ask of the artist, please write your question in the chat on YouTube, and Quentin will monitor those questions, and we'll try to take as many questions as we can. Let's start here in the room. Anybody have a question? Okay, so I see Bonnie, not Bonnie, but Bernice, and I see my good friend back there, doctor from Shiloh Baptist Church, Sharon, is here with us. Let's start with Sharon, and then we'll come up here to you, Bernice.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Henry, for inviting me to this event. And when I read your bio, Ms. Hines, I did not realize you have this great talent right in your church. That's amazing. So thank you for highlighting her story. Ms. Hines, my natural talent, God-gifted talent is art. I grew up drawing using pencil and charcoal as my favorite instrument. I'm retired now, but you're such an inspiration. How do I get to this? Not to be like you, because I don't want to steal your joy, but how do I find my art again? I use it now more graphically, designing flyers and doing programs, those things. But how do I find myself back to do the art that God has really gifted me to have and to do? What do you say?
If you've got a notion, I would say if you have a notion in your head, paint it.
Really?
That's all I could tell you to do. That's all I do. As I said, I collect these images and ideas and sketch them.
So
Pencil is my favorite, too.
Right.
And, but I don't know. I don't know how to tell you to get back into it, except to do it. That's all you can do is just to do it.
Again. I appreciate it, but you're still an inspiration nonetheless. Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharon. Now we have a question from Bernice.
Hi, good afternoon, Ms. Hines.
Good
Your
afternoon.
work is beautiful, and I
Thank
wanted
you.
to ask you, when did you know you could paint, and how did you learn to paint?
My first color creation was a picture of Beetle Bailey, and I did it in pencil, color pencil. And Marjorie drew all the time, so whatever Marjorie did, it impacted us, music and everything else. Marjorie was the leader. So, and one day my mother loved to go to the auction house, and she would bring big boxes back filled with junk, and she didn't know what was in them. And we'd go through them, see if there was anything there. And one day there was a tablet of watercolors in a tablet form, not in the little dishes. And I don't know precisely how I knew how to use it, but I did start playing with that. And then I went to this wonderful art store called Muth that no longer exists, and got brushes and oil paints, which made me sick as a dog. And so these are all acrylic. These color paintings are all acrylic because I can't deal with the oil smells. What did you ask me?
You're doing fine.
What?
When did you know you could paint?
Oh, I don't know when. I drew Beetle Bailey. I drew a picture of Julie London in a pencil, color pencil, and I woke my brother up in the middle of the night and showed it to him, and he sat up and he said, "She's cross-eyed." And then we went back to sleep. So it was just a trial and error. I don't know what made me want to do it, except that Marjorie drew all the time, Marion drew all the time. So that, I did what they do. Yes, their fault, yeah.
All right, Ms. Hines, we have a question online from Charlie Hines Music. What was the most...
That's my nephew.
That's your nephew, okay. Family, here we go. All right, his question is, what was the most emotionally difficult thing you've ever had to paint?
Ever had to paint?
Yes.
Emotionally difficult thing? Ooh. I don't do emotionally difficult paintings. I tell him the most emotionally difficult separation of a painting is my cowboy that I painted, and he's got it. There was a separation that was painful, but I don't do emotionally painful paintings. Do I? I don't think so.
Do we have any other questions from anyone in the room? I see Dr. Key. I'm going to put, this is another Henryisms. I love to embarrass people. I love to put you on the spot. So I'm going to call a couple of names. I see Dr. Sandra Key, who's with us. Dr. Key is the mother of Stephen Key, who is the choir director of Higher Praise Gospel Chorale. Dr. Key, she worked over at the Library of Congress. So as an artist, I'm sure, and as a historian, I'm sure Dr. Key has a word for us.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here today, and my good friend Henry is a good friend, and he knows everything about everybody. I am not going to tell you a whole lot today, but I'm very happy to be here. I'm glad that Steve is probably watching, and I'm just wonderful to be here today. And so thank you very much, and I'm not going to tell my life story. One of us did belong to the Howard University Choir, didn't we? Yes. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Key. Quentin, do we have any other questions from online?
Not online, but we have one here in the audience.
So we have a question from Robert Mallett from here at Asbury, and then we have another question back there on this side.
Grace, as we had an opportunity to share earlier this week, there was a lot of conversation about people who wanted to acquire one of your pieces. And of course, we learned that most of the pieces in this show are already spoken for. So for those persons who may be interested in adding a Hines to their art collection, what advice would you have for them? And may we expect more work forthcoming from you?
I don't want to get into too much trouble saying I'll do this, that, and the other thing, because next thing you know, the IRS is knocking on your door, and you have to prove this, that, the other thing. I just finished a commission painting, so, if someone asks for a certain thing, and it's specific, I'll give it a try. But I'm very lazy. I'm not anything close to prolific, and, I just do the best I can.
Grace, I know that
Hi,
you
Gloria.
Hi. Grace and I have been friends since we were 12 years old. I know that she has painted for a long time and knew that she could paint in junior high school. My question is, over the years, Grace, can you estimate how many paintings you've done? What is the size of your body of work?
Oh, my goodness, Gloria, I don't know. Gee whiz. Maybe 3 times this. I don't paint much. You think so? Well, then you answer the question.
Don't you love true Grace Hines?
So I first have a statement. I'm claiming this in faith. I've asked Grace, and she kind of smiled and never really answered me earlier today. What I asked for is, those of you who are here at Asbury know that there is a hall that has all of the pastors who have served Asbury, and it's all men, and I'm the first woman. And so I've asked Grace to do a painting of me. And it can be whatever medium you would like. It doesn't have to be oil, because I don't want you to be sick. But my question I have is, I wondered if you have done anything that has to do with the civil rights movement, since you and your sister certainly lived through that period.
No, nothing at all. I think Marion challenged me to do something. No, she wanted me to do a painting of the 9/11 tragedy, but I don't think that's my thing. I'll have to ask Jean. Is that my thing or not? I don't think so.
So Everett Williams has a question.
So Grace, I want to know, if, with all this beautiful artwork, has anything that you have done been inspired by any music that you know, have sung, have heard? Anything, any music involved with, with any of these?
Inspired? No, but I rarely paint without music. From the requiems to the, I'm scared of Brahms' Requiem, because every time I used to play that, somebody would die. So I haven't heard that in years. But I love music. That's in my soul, in my bones. So I don't generally paint without music, and it's pretty loud. And that's difficult to do when you like to paint at night. So no particular piece has inspired me as far as I can remember.
So Grace, we have another question from Dr. Sharon Parker from Shiloh Baptist Church.
Real quickly, Ms. Hines, can you name a art that you consider your absolute favorite? Of all the artwork, all your pieces, can you name one?
Pencil.
No, okay, so is there the work? Is pencil is your favorite tool?
A painting. The cowboy that my nephew has, that's my favorite.
That's your favorite. Okay, the one that got away.
As I was in my perpetual state of being broke, and he decided to get married, and I was going to the wedding, which was in Pennsylvania. That's a long way to travel without a gift. So I took the painting of the cowboy that I had just completed, I think.
And that was your favorite?
That was my favorite.
Bless your heart. Where is your nephew? We need to get that back.
Quentin, do we have any more questions from our online guest?
Actually, there's one from Veronica Hines.
That's my sister-in-law.
Okay.
Veronica is our sister-in-law.
The question is, Grace, when are you going to give, and I say give, me one of your paintings? I have one called I Am Woman.
Ronnie blackmailed me for that painting, and so that's it, Ronnie. That's it. It wasn't fair, and that's it.
Quentin, is there anyone else online?
Let's see, not online.
So we have a question from Tawana, who's from Asbury.
Hi, Grace, my sister in Christ. Did you ever take pictures of those artworks that you gave away?
Some I did, and some I didn't. My brother, who lived in New York, I just sent them to him. Or I don't know how he got them, but he had several paintings of mine that he would force his friends to buy so he could make his rent. And they weren't very good, so I know he forced them, but he had all this personality, and they loved him to death. So I would give him these paintings, and he would sell them. But I don't know.
And also, are you thinking about doing a book of your paintings?
You asked me that the other day. I don't really know what that means.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I don't know what a book of my paintings, like Marion's book?
Mm-hmm.
No.
So we have a question from Bernice up front. Quentin? This is Bernice up here, up front.
As you're answering, your pictures are scrolling, and they just put up Ethiopian Shepherd Boy, and I saw that when I walked around. What was the inspiration for that painting?
I was watching TV, and Louis Gates was doing a tour of Ethiopia. He was talking about the Ark of the Covenant and driving down the roads in a Jeep or something, and there was a little boy on the side of the road on something no higher than this, mound of something, and he was playing a flute, and it was dressed sort of like that, I guess. And so I said, oh, that looks good, and I started trying to do that. But I put him up high because I thought that was more dramatic.
So we'll take one last question before we prepare to go upstairs for the next event. Anyone in the room? Oh, come on. I see Jackie, okay, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Cassandra Bradley, and I have been invading these sisters' lives for 47 years. And my question...
This was before I was born.
To Ms. Hines is, what would you say to the young people today that could inspire them to emulate your behavior?
I don't know that I want anyone to emulate my behavior. I just keep plugging along. Paul Lawrence Dunbar said, keep plugging along. That's all I do, is I walk in faith and I plug along. And nobody is really chasing me for my art, but I just keep plugging along. And I don't really do it for anybody. I do it for myself. And if someone wants something that I can part with, then so be it.
Outstanding answer. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I truly think that's the answer of the day. Keep plugging along, because I think that's what we're doing here at Asbury, and particularly as we are celebrating homecoming this weekend, we are plugging along, and the theme for homecoming this year is fishing differently, and it says God is up to something. So, Grace, it has been an absolute joy sharing this moment with you. And also getting to know Grace. Grace and I have had more telephone calls and email exchanges. A lot of people didn't know I like to talk, or particularly like to talk on the telephone. Other than my family, they know I love to talk on the telephone. So it has been an absolute joy.
Thank you.
It has just been incredible.
I've enjoyed you too.
Have you really? Oh.
You're just as sweet.
This is how our telephone calls go. We have talked about everything from pizza to, Henry, how do I do this on my computer? So it has been absolutely wonderful. I am just so excited that you've joined us for this presentation as we are celebrating 187 years on this corner of 11th and K Street Northwest in Washington, D.C. And we're so blessed by the leadership of our pastor, Dr. Mills, who is leading us to greater and greater heights here on this corner at Asbury. So the artwork that you see will be on display today, tomorrow, and it will also be on display next weekend, next Saturday and next Sunday. So be sure to tell your friends about this exhibit and invite them to come and see this beautiful collection. Later this afternoon at 5 o'clock, we're going to experience another amazing celebration by the FAME Jazz Ensemble. FAME stands for the Foundation for the Advancement in Music and Education. And so it's not music education, but it's music and education. So that event is going to be held in this, up in the main sanctuary at 5 o'clock. We invite all of you to join us upstairs. The stairs are through the doors there, or you can take the elevator to the right. And for those of you who are joining us online, there will be a separate YouTube link that you can click on and join us at 5 o'clock. Grace will probably stay with us for a while here. If you have more questions for Grace as you walk around and take a closer look at the art, you might want to ask Grace more questions about a particular piece. So we invite you to do that. But I want to thank Grace for sharing this time with us. And I'm going to ask my friend, Francis Neal, to join us in a presentation to Grace. So she said, do I have to say something? I didn't tell her that part. But I am notorious for embarrassing people and putting people on the spot.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, I fooled you, didn't I? Well, Grace, this is for you. This is the flowers. And we also want you to present you with a gift card to your favorite place that you like to go to. And it's Ruth Chris. It's Ruth Chris. So thank you. If you need someone to have dinner with you. Okay. Well, thank you. I've been, like everyone else here, I have truly enjoyed your art. I did not know that you were this talented and modest.
I tried to tell you that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Thank you all for joining us. And as you continue to look at the art, for those of you who are joining us online, continue to watch the art on screen. And then for those of you who are here with us, please enjoy the art. Get up close to it. Take a look, because there's a lot of detail in each piece that we want you to see. But I am truly thankful that you have joined us for the beginning of our homecoming celebration here at Asbury United Methodist Church. So we wish you blessings, and we'll look for you at 5 o'clock. And we'll also look for you in the morning at 10 o'clock, as we will be blessed by Bishop Latrell Easterling, who is going to share a wonderful word from the Lord with us at 10 o'clock in the morning. So be sure to join us again here in about an hour and 15 minutes, and then tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Thank you all so much. Blessings.